Hi everyone, this is Stephen. It's the 16th of November 2016, which is a relevant day in history in respect of a lot of this week's bot news. Today in 1914, the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States officially opened. Just bringing us up to date, there's been a flurry of news in the past few weeks surrounding the concept of bots in fintech. I pointed out some specific bots in the past like Plum, Chip and Clio, as well as mainstream banks like Bank of America launching Erica recently. The latest addition to the club is MasterCard, who announced the imminent launch of their own bot to transact, manage finances and shop via messaging platforms. I'm waiting with bated breath to see if they manage to deliver on that specification, as I think that one could be a game changer. I've said in webcasts for a few weeks now, this is a great time for you to be talking about bots. In a lot of cases, they're going to be used as a marketing tool in a retail context in the run up to Christmas. Of course, now only 39 days away. For now, however, an official welcome to FlowXO's Getting Started webcast will get you up and running with FlowXO with an introduction to its key features and benefits, specifically in relation to its push service for marketing, its messaging service for contacting human agents in real time, and collecting data through a conversational form. If there's anything specific you'd like to see, just get in live chat now or drop a note into our community later. If you haven't been there yet, I'll give you some links for that at the end. Before we get into the webcast proper, a quick shout out to our hashtag WhatTheBot. You can follow WhatTheBot on Twitter to keep up to date with all the latest bot news. It's a great source of inspiration and we'll keep you up to date with the latest ideas for leveraging bot in your business. I also have some other arising non-fintech bots to take a quick look at with you. First up, we have Lufthansa. The chatbot enables users to search for flights over the next few months and claims to find the cheapest flights. Users can search by date and booking class, as well as include details such as airports or home city. And the idea is that Mildred here knows the nearest airport that Lufthansa flies from. Travellers are then redirected to the Lufthansa mobile website to make a booking. I think that's the correct cut-off point for a bot. It doesn't try to do too much and then fail, but it has a decent amount of utility on the front end. A couple of things I would point out, however, which are good pointers for anybody building out their own bot. It's advertised as Mildred, but I couldn't find that in Messenger. I had to visit the site to find a link, so you need to name your bot in a way that means users can find it. There's also too many dead ends here. You should never be in a position where you're told no, and then nothing else happens, as happened to me right here. Next up is arising this week is Signal. Signal are a toothpaste brand from Unilever. It's a bot that encourages families and children to brush their teeth. They've developed a series of animated stories that are set up to be sent at a specific time each day. It's a reminder to brush your teeth, and of course, this is business, get you to buy Signal toothpaste. It's a good use of rich video content and storytelling in a bot, and it's worth a look to understand how it drives interactivity. Final bot to look at is GrowthBot. This was built by Domesh Shah over at HubSpot. Great job, Domesh. If you're listening, get in touch if you are. I do have two observations. First of all, your blog says that for a few months you've been furiously coding away on this project, and it's an impressive feat for sure. But one point I'd make is that we could probably do this in FlowXO in an afternoon's solid work rather than a few months. So I'd love to talk to you about how that's possible. I was excited by the Add to CRM button here. It's one of my favorite features of FlowXO, the ability to add data from conversations into any apps or pass data from apps into conversations. So this bot's worth a nice look as well for some inspiration and get some intel on companies you might like to work with. Okay, so by this point, you've signed up for FlowXO and connected your Messenger bot. Let us know if you're having any trouble with that, either right now in live chat or pass a note in our community. A quick reminder, what is FlowXO? Well, first of all, it's the future of business messaging. It must be true because it says it right there over my shoulder. In more direct terms, FlowXO is a complete platform for building, hosting and managing chatbots for messaging platforms such as Messenger, Slack and Telegram. It includes a visual editor to build bots without code. Everything is driven by a set of flows which you build with certain tasks. You can create and distribute your own bots which are owned and branded by you but controlled and hosted by FlowXO. I'm running this cast live so that I can maximize your time and provide everything you need to get started right in this session. Let us solve any queries, give any guidance you need right away. Again, there's live chat, so by all means get talking to the team and I over on the right of the YouTube window. Down to business, let's go onto my desktop. So my example business for today is the mortgage store, who are the home of the mortgage bot. The Mortgage Store are a typical mortgage broker who are regulated to advise customers on mortgage loans, and they have a Facebook page in place. They have a range of products available: first-time buyer, remortgage, buy-to-let or second home mortgages. Some more context: the Mortgage Store simply want to communicate with customers better, provide a more engaging experience, divert basic queries away from their resource-intensive phone line, and ultimately write more business. If you got my email, you should have a bot in place by now, a messenger open and ready to go, as well as Google Sheets, Gmail, and of course FlowXO. We'll take a close look at that setup in a few minutes, but first let's dive right in and take a look at our bot in action. I'm going to launch him here so that you can see that clicking Get Started gives us a specific trigger to welcome new first-time customers. And you can see here triggering on Get Started, which uses the start keyword. Right away, he's trying to get us on track by giving us some option buttons. He's trying to fulfill his purpose. However, it's important that he can handle some basic conversation, so let's say hello. And you can see he wants to get right to the point again. He gives us some basic options right away to direct us to the things we want him to handle. But I'm more interested in how he is. I'm going to be a little bit mischievous and type in a question rather than click an option he's given. Okay, so you can see that he can easily counter that, and he's constantly directing us back into the bot's purpose, which is the whole point of having the bot out there. It's really easy to set up this basic conversational chatter and capture any and all things that are thrown at the bot. We'll look at some flows in a moment so you can know how easy it was to put this together. But first, let's just have a look at some of the other options that he's alluded to. First, let's assume that none of the options we have are immediately directly helpful, or perhaps I'm not reading it correctly and I'm a little bit impatient, and just remind ourselves what our options are. We'll use the help keyword. And you can see we're given a complete menu of possible options without any fuss. Okay, so let's subscribe to some content. So we want updates on the products that this company might want to send us. I'll pick that I'm a first-time buyer. And I'm now subscribed to receive those updates. Unfortunately, I then realized that I'm not eligible for that product, and I'm going to unsubscribe because I don't want to receive those. Instead, what I want is to get right to the point, and I'd like a quote. And you can see that what's happened is that we've fallen back on some general helper text. This is a flow that still needs building. I should probably tell the bot creator that's a problem. I'd like a quote, but for some reason I can't get one, and I'd like to get hold of a human. So the bot's now asking me what I'd like to speak to them about. And I'm told that somebody should be in touch in 2 to 3 hours. Just jumping over to my email, I'll imagine that I'm sat in my office now as the agent at the Mortgage Store, and here you go. You can see I've received an email from Messenger, and a customer has got in touch with us and told us, and the bot's told us that he's going to reply. He can expect a reply from the human in 2 to 3 hours. Well, we're going to do slightly better than that. We're actually going to reply now. And you can see here, as the agent, I'm going to send a message directly back to the customer in Messenger. And you can see that instantly I've got that reply, and I have the option as the customer now to click reply to go and speak directly back to the human in that trail. We'll look at how the FlowXO messaging service powers that option shortly. As well as resolving the issue with getting a quote, we'll build a flow out together to manage that, and we'll send some content to our subscribers. So let's start to look at how we'll go about actually building out that functionality. Before we go further with the flows, however, let's take a close look at our setup. I have FlowXO, of course. We've been in Messenger. I've also got Gmail. And one we haven't looked at yet, I've also got Google Sheets here. You can see that my sheet has a specific structure, and it's important that I've set it up this way before working with any flows. Just an idea of what's going on here before we get to our flows proper. We have 3 sheets. The first is data to push, and this is going to be our trigger sheet. Every time we put some information in this sheet, it's going to trigger our marketing messages through Messenger. We just need to put the correct content under the correct headings with a cut and paste. Our second sheet helps us do that. This is my staging area where I prepare the marketing messages I'll eventually want to send. I've made it easy to just cut and paste these pre-prepared messages in this future marketing sheet. You can see here I have all the deals that I might want to communicate to customers. The content is relevant to our scenario, but most important is the category column here, which is going to help us contact the right customers at the right time. The third sheet here, new customer, is going to be used when we collect some data through a conversational form. Again, we'll be building out a flow to populate that sheet in real time just a little later. So here we are at the Flow dashboard. Just a quick shout out about a relatively new release. There's a referral link here. And if you encourage your friends to use the platform via social media, you can earn rewards in the way of extra interactions and bots or flows. You can see here I've arranged my flows into folders. It's a great way of managing what the bot does and tweaking functionality, or for organizing flows for different events or customers. So let's consider the flows we have here and the ones we'll want to build. So first, we're going to use FlowXO's push service to handle our marketing and deliver content to users in Messenger. We need 3 flows to handle marketing, and this one here is our first. When I set up this trigger, I'm only required to give one thing, the name of the push. This trigger acts as a receiver of data that will send from another flow. I'm going to call it receive offers, and it's important that I remember that name. In this next action in the flow, we're going to use the attribute service. Attributes can act like a counter, how many times somebody visited, or a flag, somebody said a specific word. It's a simple key value story in the background. We're going to use it here to see if a customer is eligible to receive the manner of push we're sending each time this flow is run. They'll be eligible because they suggest a certain mortgage type when they're subscribed. So we're going to get an attribute of the specific customer. They're uniquely identified by their response path. We're interested in the customer's stored mortgage product preference, which we identified as category in our spreadsheet. Of course, we've yet to ask the customer what that preference might be, but we do know that it'd be one of our 4 options or product types: first time buyer, remortgage, buy-to-let, or second home. So this may seem a little counterintuitive at the moment, getting an attribute before we've set it, but it's important that we consider this flow first so that the receiver, the push trigger, is in place and can be called from our subsequent flows. Lastly, in this flow, we can then send a card. I'm going to send some rich content rather than a simple message. I just need to fill in these inputs with the data I'll eventually receive from the push. You can see that these outputs came directly from FlowXO. When we build our own flow in a few minutes, you'll see how easy that is. Last point is, you'll see here a blue call out. I needed to make the sender card action conditional so that we only send content that's appropriate to the user. We can do that by checking the value of the attribute we got in the previous task isn't empty. That is, we've previously recorded this specific customer as preferring this type of offer. Filters are really important for controlling our workflow, and you can put them on any task to define simple logical comparisons. Just make sure this workflow is turned on, and we can move on to our next flow. So now we're ready to get customers subscribed to the content we'll push out. First, we need a trigger based on something that's said to the bot. In this case, we're going to focus on the keyword subscribe. It's important to note that there's some fuzzy matching here. So this trigger will function on the word subscribe and on the word unsubscribe, meaning we can neatly accommodate both cases in one flow. Next, we're going to use one of FlowXO's helper tasks to manage the message the customer gave us. This is important because we need to make sure we can filter some tasks later in this flow without worrying if there are any capitalized words given. So we're just going to lowercase the message that we're given. Next, we'll ask a question, and we're going to set the type as choice here. So we're going to ask what kind of mortgage type the customer would like to receive offers on. Then we're ready to revisit attributes. We're going to set an attribute now for this particular customer. The name of the attribute will be the answer to the question we just asked, which is the mortgage type the customer is interested in. We need to make sure we filter these actions so the word they give is not unsubscribe, because these are only actions that we want to happen on the word subscribe being given. Next, we have two push actions, one to subscribe and one to unsubscribe, which are filtered by the lowercase message we received. And then similarly, we just need two filtered messages to confirm the subscription or unsubscription to the customer, again filtered on the same test, the presence or absence of the word unsubscribe. Make sure that workflow is on as well. Our last flow in this set of 3 flows relating to push marketing, we're on to the exciting one, is going to be called release offers. It's a simple flow that starts with a FlowXO service integration rather than a bot new message trigger. So here we're going to use Google Sheets as a trigger. You remember we looked at the sheet that we'll use, data to push, here, and we're going to then send a push to the receiver in this action that we set up in flow 1. This is why it's important we named it for identification here. Again, these outputs came from FlowXO directly, and I just selected them from the list. Okay, so just making sure all those flows are switched on, and we'll check this out in Messenger. First of all, let me make sure I'm subscribed. Then I can go over to my sheet. I'm going to take my deal that I've pre-prepared. I'm going to paste it in, ready to push. And back over in FlowXO, just a note that this is a polling trigger rather than an instantaneous trigger, so I just need to wait for it to go away to Google Sheets and pick up that new data. I can see it was triggered less than a minute ago, so I picked it up on the last poll. Quick look in the logs. And you can see there's the message being posted through to me in Messenger. So those 3 flows were all it took to manage our marketing. It's super simple to get in place, and then it's incredibly easy to push out your messages whenever you like. You could push any kind of updates that way, of course, not just offers. You could have an attribute specific to the customer and, keeping the mortgage theme here, securely up there on the status of the conveyancing file or anything else. You might have several different flows, and you might use the ask a question action to ask which stream the customer would like to receive, then just use filters and attributes as we've already seen. Now we need to start building out the bot in terms of general conversation and other important features. First, let's consider how we greet all new customers who are speaking to the bot for the first time. We saw that when we clicked Get Started, and we use the start keyword. And we also want to be able to respond to anything we don't understand. Well, first we need to put a catch-all trigger in place in this flow. We only need to say that it's going to be active for all of our bots here. We don't need to give any other input because we're looking for everything that isn't captured by another trigger. Next, we're going to use the code service to get the first name from the full name that Facebook provides to us. The code service is a powerful way to do, well, whatever it is you want. it can make requests to other apps or services that Flowxo doesn't support. It can perform custom manipulations or calculations on data, and it can use the output in the conversation with the customer. We've used a really simple example here just to parse a first name out, but the options are limitless. If you want to interact with your CRM, your caller, or your dialing system, or any other web-connected app, you can do it with this service. Be sure to talk to us to see how you can get the best out of it. Now we'll handle the greeting to brand new customers who are speaking to the bot for the first time. We just need to use a filter again, and we'll give a general greeting to all new customers and filter on that word start. Just an important note on this point is that we'll also, on this filter, stop the flow at this stage if those conditions are met. So if this is a new customer, we're not going to continue with this flow. Assuming that's not the case, and as a precursor to our next flow, we're going to use a filtered message that we want to be said when we generally don't understand something during the flow of conversation. So we've come to two cases here, a brand new connection and a generally misunderstood message, which could have come at any point after start. We'll tackle that second case and feed into this final task in this flow with a new flow called Chatter, which demonstrates some interoperability of these flows and handles the "how are you" type conversation that we looked at when we first launched the bot. So now we'll look at giving some specific things to the bot to make it more conversational. You'll see how easy it is to scale these. After some simple conversation, we'll make sure we get down to business and redirect the customer to our intended process. The bot must be fun, but it must also be functional. We will trigger on new message here and trigger on the phrase and keywords hello, hi, and how are. We'll then use the same code service we saw earlier with the same code in order to parse out the first name. Then we'll send a basic message assuming we're looking for how are. We need to make sure the filter there is that our original message contains the value how are. And finally, we'll send a message again, which is a general reply to hi, hello, etc. Again, the important thing to understand here is the interoperability of this flow with the catch-all that we looked at a moment ago. With a few simple actions and a bit of thought, we can make the bot appear to respond quite intelligently, but all it took is these 4 simple actions and then a fallback on the catch-all when it doesn't understand something that we said. So now we'll just round off in terms of general conversation. Because we've overridden the help keyword, in our catch-all, we'll set up a separate flow to handle the word help and also the word menu, which is a common human request for a menu of options. And we'll send a simple message back, which we saw when we launched the bot, which just gives us some direct options about things that we can do. Okay, so now on to some more important features, now that the bot is a bit more built out in terms of general conversation. In this next flow, in touch, we're allowing the customer to contact a human agent directly. We need to trigger on some common words and phrases that we've identified as a customer needing specific human help. I'm also going to trigger on the keyword reply, and you'll see why that's important in a few minutes. We're then going to ask a question to get some more detail. We're going to use this action twice because we want to make sure we're only responding in a certain way under a certain circumstance. So the first circumstance here is that it's not a reply. We haven't used the keyword reply to trigger this flow. So we can assume this is a new conversation when we use this action. And the second action, we're going to ask on the basis that we've asked to reply to a message that was already sent. So it's not a brand new conversation with a human. We're then going to use the messaging service to send a message to a human agent. Again, we'll have 2 actions just to tailor the content based on this being a first time message or a reply. And finally, just a message to the customer to let them know we've contacted a human and how long they're likely to be. So it's that easy to get the message routing in place that we saw a few minutes ago when we complained that the bot couldn't get us a quote. We're going to use the messaging service again in a moment. It's a really powerful tool that makes bots better than any single AI. All the advantages of bots and human intelligence in one flow. Before we do, just a quick but important note to say that we've used Gmail here. We saw the message being routed to Gmail, but you can link up the messaging service to any email address, and you can route messages through Freshdesk, Help Scout, Salesforce Desk, or any other ticketing software for complete customer interaction management. So let's take this up a level and make this even more exciting. We'll put it in a sales context with our final flow, which we'll build out together, which is get a quote. So let's build this out. First, I'm going to trigger on the keyword quote. Then I'm going to send a message to the customer just to keep the interaction engaging. Then we'll ask a question. We'll ask for their email. And we'll validate as email, so they can only give an email in response. We'll then ask another question. What is your mobile or cell number? And we'll validate as a number. Final question. And we'll just be a bit more sensitive with this question. Could I take your salary? Of course, we'll keep this information confidential. And we'll validate on a number again just to make sure we get a numeric input as an answer. I'm then going to use FlowXO's number service. I'm going to perform a calculation. An expression, I'm going to ask the answer to the last question we asked about salary times 4.5, which is a typical mortgage lending criteria. We'll then send a message to the customer. I have something pre-prepared here, but you'll see that what's important is that I can put a FlowXO output in here, which is the result of the calculation that we just made. And finally here, two important actions. Firstly, I'm going to use Google Sheets. I'm going to add a row to trap this new lead. We're going to use our new customers sheet that we looked at earlier. And you can see here, it's now really easy just to populate this sheet, a new row in this sheet, using FlowXO's outputs. So the email was the answer to the first question that we asked. Mobile was the answer to the second question that we asked. Salary was the third. And mortgage amount is the custom calculation that we made here. And finally, in this flow, we're now going to revisit the messaging service. And contact the human agent. the deal value is again the result of that calculation that we made. Let's make sure this workflow is on, and we'll go check this out in Messenger. We'll now ask for a quote. I've been given an indicative quote, and I'm told that an advisor will be in touch in just a few minutes, which is great. I'm going to go over to my spreadsheet, my new customer sheet, and you can see here's my new lead that's been updated for me through this conversational form. And over in Gmail, I've had a direct request for help with the lead's details, and again using the messaging service, I can reply directly back into Messenger. And I can continue the dialogue with a human there. So you can see here, we have the basis of a really good bot. We have some marketing functions in place. And we're able to point out options to a brand new customer right away, and we can respond when we don't understand a particular message. We've also looked at data collection and configuring human interaction directly through the bot with a messaging service. They're both very powerful customer service and sales tools. So this is it, crunch time. I hope you've seen how easy it is to get started, and you have some of your own ideas about what you'd like to build next. Here's what pricing looks like. For only $19 a month, you can build out 15 bots or flows and accommodate 5,000 interactions. There's no contract or time period, and you can downgrade to a free plan at any time. Because you've been kind enough to watch today, I'd like to sweeten the deal. Here are links to all the flows we've built out today, so you can install them right away. To get them in place, you will need more than 5 flows that are available in the free edition. So I'm also going to give you a coupon for your first month free if you sign up in the next 24 hours. You just have to use the coupon code FREE4616. With no time period, that means you can completely de-risk your own bot launch. Don't forget, this video will be online for a short while later, so you can get those links if you need them. Finally, a few resources to be aware of. There are extensive help docs at support.flowxo.com here. We have a lively and engaging community at community.flowxo.com, and we also have a constructive blog at medium.com/flowxo where we build out other use cases. Watch out for hashtag #WhatTheBot on social media to get all the latest bot news. Thanks for watching. I've really enjoyed building that out with you today. Please get signed up and tell me more about your use case. I'm going to be on live chat now. I'd be delighted to help you get started building things out. I'll be running this session weekly, so feel free to come and watch again if you like. The core content won't change, but if you have a specific use case, perhaps you can build that into the session. A final reminder, if you get onto the Twitter now and hashtag #WhatTheBot, I'll be sure to give you some retweets there too. Get in touch. I'd love to hear from you, and see you all soon.